Hello everybody, welcome back to Life Stories. My name is Trent and I hope you're doing awesome as always. Today we got more stories coming in from Reddit/entitledparents. So let's just see how entitled they can possibly get today. Let's get started. Our first story is titled, Mother and Daughter Cut in Line at a Grocery Store, Gets Exposed by a Customer, and Then Chewed Out by Employee. Sorry if the title is a little weird. I'm not very good with titles. This was a story that my dad was involved in a few days ago when he was shopping, and I really wanted to share it. I can never understand why my dad always runs into these types of encounters, and not me, but maybe that's a good thing. Since I'm retelling his story, I apologize for any missing details, but feel free to critique me on my grammar as my thoughts are all over the place sometimes. Our grocery store loves social distancing as much as it loves great deals and the color red. Since it's one of the only big grocery stores in the area, it gets a lot of traffic, meaning long lines with many 6-foot gaps between. The store also uses employees to make sure the two lines on either side of the store are kept straight, orderly, and that customers are promptly directed to checkout when a slot appears. Problem is that these employees aren't always diligent and often walk away expecting everyone in line to just deal with things themselves, especially when the lines get long. It's frustrating, but most of the time, customers will still act respectfully on their own. At the time this story occurred, the line my dad was in stretched to the back of the store and had around 20 or more people waiting anxiously in it. My dad was behind a woman in her 30s, who I'll call QW for Quiet Woman, and in front of a tough-looking father and his two children, I'll call Loud Man or LM. The rest of the cast includes Heather, the EM who was also in her 30s but didn't sport the Karen look or attitude, Julie, late teens or early 20s, who was assumed to be the daughter of Heather and didn't contribute much to the story, and Strict Employee, or SE. The story began when he was about 6 people away from the checkout line. Heather appeared and loudly started talking to QW like typical friends would. During the conversation, Heather was slowly moving her basket into the gap in front of QW, and when she was halfway in, she asked if she could cut in line. QW stuttered a bit before giving a quiet, "Okay," and Heather moved into the gap right away. Not even a minute after, she pulls out her phone and starts loudly talking to QW again. I also want to point out that on top of breaking the gap for social distancing purposes, Heather also wasn't wearing any type of mask. "Oh, and Julie's here too. I'll call her so she can come and join us," she said as she immediately started dialing her number on her phone. QW didn't say anything, but occasionally looked around and even over her shoulder. She looked as if she knew what was going on was wrong, but didn't feel like she could stop it. Dad gave her a disapproving head shake when she looked in his direction. Soon after, a younger girl, likely in her late teens to early 20s, appeared, pushing a heavy cart filled to the brim with groceries. Heather suddenly started shouting at her and waving her arms around like she was flagging down a rescue plane, saying, "There she is! Julie, come over here!" She urged the girl to cut in front of her, which caused a domino effect of customers behind Heather to back up in order to give the gap more space to support 2 long grocery carts. At this point, the 6-foot gap that was supposed to exist between QW and the customer in front of her was completely occupied by Heather and Julie, and no one was there to stop it at the time. Julie didn't act entitled, but listened to Heather, as she probably thought it was okay to do if she said it was. Not too long afterwards, a loud, "Hey!" boomed from behind my dad. It was the LM standing in line behind him, shouting at Heather and Julie. "You can't cut in line like that! This is ridiculous!" Heather dropped the kind of expression she had before and shouted back to LM to, "Mind your own business!" She tried to go back to the conversation, but LM wasn't exactly done. He looked around and spotted the Strict Employee, who had heard the loud noise and had her attention towards LM. LM pointed at Heather and Julie, exclaiming, "People are cutting in line over here!" SE suddenly had a look of frustration, and she quickly started approaching the LM, noticed the 2 ladies he was pointing to in the middle of a gap, and then moved to them. "I'm going to have to ask you 2 ladies to get to the back of the line. Now, please." Heather started to complain and then argue with SE, even going so far as to say Julie was the only one who cut, but SE didn't budge an inch. After about 2 minutes of complaints and arguments, SE looked her dead in the eyes and said in a deep voice, "You know exactly why this line is in place, right?" Heather immediately backed down, uttered an angry, "Fine," and then proceeded to leave the line while shouting, "Come on, Julie." Julie was left to struggle with the heavy basket that she had to turn to get out. The last thing my dad heard was Heather mumbling something under her breath to LM, and LM responding with a booming, "You better watch your mouth around my kids, you hear?" Heather and Julie quickly disappeared to the back of the line, which had not changed in size during the time my dad had been there, and the line continued as normal. QW didn't say a word afterwards, but a part of me hopes she didn't get crap for it from Heather later on. I know this isn't your typical EP story, and maybe isn't entirely about an entitled parent, but I thought it'd fit here because it takes some serious entitlement to think you have the right to cut in line, and then get someone else to also cut with you during a time when we should be social distancing. Even though the restrictions are loosening in some areas of my country, we should still be mindful about it. Absolutely. Where I live, things are also loosening up, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't stop taking it seriously. People are still sick, and people still very well might get sick. So keep the entitlement out of it, and we can probably, hopefully, make sure more people stay safe. Moving along, our next story is titled, EM Allows Her Bratty Little Son to Get Away with Bullying. Hey guys, so I've been lurking around this subreddit for a year, and I've decided to share my encounter with an entitled parent. I know this is a little tame compared to the other stories that are posted on here, but it is an entitled parent story nonetheless. Also, this was 8 years ago, so I'm paraphrasing some of it. Anyways, let's get into it. It was towards the end of the 2012 school year, which in the US is in May. With only a month to go, the hype was real, and everyone was excited to leave. There was a playground near the school, so me and my friends decided to go there and have a water balloon fight. Just to note, we were all 6 to 7 years old, so of course we needed to go with our parents. The day comes around and things go to plan. The park is empty, so it's better. Our parents are just in their cars waiting, and we fill up the balloons. We have a blast, and are practically soaked. We had just ran out of balloons when a group of 5th graders, which were cool, pulled up. They had water balloons too, and they were already filled up. They bombarded us, and we ran away. We didn't snitch, and we left. A few days later, we go to the park after school to play games. My older sis was in the car doing homework with my mom. One of the kids, who was known for being snobby, comes to the park by himself. I had balloons on me, 'cause why not, and I fill it up. I sneak near him and throw one at his head and his crotch area. It looked like he peed himself. He ran away, and I laughed, since it was a great comeback. I go back to playing with my friends when a lady comes up to me and says, "What did you do?" Huh? I said. "What did you do to my son?" I see the kid, now calling him EK, crying next to her. EM cuts in. Speak! I threw a water balloon at him, but he threw it at us the other day. He drove me and my friends out of the park. I said this pretty weakly. I don't care what he did to you. What gives you the right to attack my son? I didn't. Yes, you did. At this point, I'm starting to cry because a grown lady is yelling at a 6-year-old boy. My friends were just watching and didn't say anything. Nothing to help me. Thanks, guys. He kicked us out of the park, I said. Yeah, he did. Maybe little craps like you shouldn't be playing here. At this point, I'm sobbing and terrified, and everyone is watching. This park isn't for little kids, it's for mature children. Most people here are little kids, which is why? Anyway, back with the story. My son has the right to scare off children if he wants to, especially if they're not supposed to be here. Yeah, I do, said EK. I know you go to school here at PS 173. I want you to know that I will have you expelled. Expel him! I hate this kid, and I don't want him at my school, EK said. Me, who could have very well had a stroke at this point. No, please, I love it here. Where is your mother? Said EM. Yeah, get his mother. She's gonna be so mad and punish him really badly. At this time in my life, I didn't exactly have what you'd call street smarts, so I believed the threats, and I was afraid my mom would side with her and I would get in trouble, so it was horrifying. Luckily, one of my friends, his name is Lucas, I think, I can't remember how to spell his last name, so let's just call him Lucas. Also, I haven't seen him in years, so it's fine and he probably won't see this. If you're reading this, Lucas, shout out to you for doing what comes next. Lucas goes and gets my sister. I guess my mom didn't want to deal with it since I usually get in trouble for stupid things. I'm not blaming my mom though. I love her and she's amazing at giving advice. My sister comes and bails me out. I don't remember how, but she says something to the lady. My sister is 13 at this point, so she has better judgment and knows what to do. I get in the car and my mom sees me crying. She drives away while comforting me. As she drives away, I see Lucas throw a water balloon at EM from afar. I'm too sad though to actually enjoy it. I was afraid of getting expelled and that the EM would sue me. I don't know why I thought that, but after reading stories on this subreddit, I guess it's not a bad assumption to say that EM or Karens would sue because they usually try to, or at least threaten. Sadly, I lost the battle against EM and had to retreat, but I do have more entitled parent stories, although it's not with this EM. Hey OP, I don't blame you. Entitled parents are voracious and sometimes they won't go down without a fight. Can only hope that any other run-ins you've had with them since went a bit better. And with that story out of the way, we are out of time for today's episode, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you so much for tuning into Life Stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for all the Reddit content we got working coming your way. My name is Trent, and I hope to see you guys soon.